Hi, Drew. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you? I'm well.
Good. I'm doing well too. So we were going to talk about renting versus owning, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because I made a post yesterday on
Mhm.
renting versus owning, and it was a calculation taking into consideration of how much you pay for rent versus how much you put into a house. And in the calculation, so I did a $650,000 house. If you were to purchase that, put 10% down,
Mhm.
how much your payments would be versus if you were to rent a $3,000 a month house
Yeah.
each month. And so the calculator I have said it would be just over 5 years before you break even your payments versus maintenance and versus your rental payments. And it was really interesting. I had over 1,000 views on just that, and that's in a day. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is, I think, a really hot topic because rent is getting so expensive around here.
Right.
And people really want to know, is it a good option when your interest rates in the high sixes, sevens? Is that a good option to still buy? And so that kind of brings it to you. I mean, I think it's still a great option because you can always refinance. I always tell you're dating the rate. You can, your 7 is the highest rate you'll ever have. You can always go lower and refinance to a
Yeah.
new rate and make your payments a lot less. So
Yeah. No, and it's true. I mean, payments on mortgages are a little high right now because of the interest rates, but you're absolutely right. You can always refinance. And in reality, we're looking at probably a pretty short time period that these rates are going to stay. But it's not necessarily, and this is, I'll get back to the renting component of it, but it's not necessarily a good thing to wait for the rates to lower to buy, simply because, as soon as you feel more comfortable or you want to get the better interest rate, so does everyone else. And so right now the competition is a lot lower. And so you can get a much more reasonably priced home without maybe as much competition as you otherwise would. Like, for example, when rates were in those record lows, the twos and the threes, I mean, you can speak to it, that people were putting in huge offers and they were paying a massive amount over ask price because of that low interest rate. They could make lower payments on a higher mortgage. And so
yeah,
right now it's kind of the reverse. But what the trick is getting in now when you can be a little bit, more competitive in your offer. You take that interest rate for a short period of time, and then when they go back down and kind of everyone else is scrambling to buy a house, you already have yours. And that's also how you see that huge appreciation happen. And
mhm,
going back to the renting, obviously nothing's guaranteed, but in reality, part of the benefit to owning is not just having control over your own home. It's also the appreciation that you can see in it. And so let's say, for example, your mortgage payment is going to be higher than rent. That's not entirely like leaving your asset collection, because a portion of that's going to principal, so you're paying down that loan. And then also really what you're seeing, the most significant part isn't really the principal pay down, it's the appreciation.
mhm.
A home can be somewhat subjective in how it's valued. And so like you could buy a home and theoretically immediately have $50,000 of equity gain because you touched up the kitchen. Nothing huge, I'm not saying a big remodel, but that appreciation can be really dramatic, and home values can really skyrocket again, as we've seen in the last couple of years. And even now with the higher interest rates, they still haven't gone down. So that's kind of a proof in the pudding that that even in the hardest economy, really prices are not going down because we've
Mhm.
got so many protections in place to protect that. Admittedly, the competition's gone down a little bit, so maybe you won't get 100,000 over asking price, maybe, but it just means you just have to hold it until the next time that people are willing to do that. And so it's a big opportunity grab basically right now. You kind of got to bite the bullet, maybe take a little bit higher payment, a little bit higher rate, as long as you can afford it and you're still comfortable making that payment. It can be a really good investment, and it can actually pay off pretty quickly because we're expecting rates to go down somewhat soon.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
and then and when those rates do go down and it makes sense for you to refinance, that's when you talk to Drew and you figure out the numbers, and you could save, hundreds of dollars on your mortgage payments. And I'm only giggling because I don't know very many rents that actually go back down. I only know rents to go up. So
Yeah.
if you want to lock in a lower rate, I mean, your rate is the same. Your monthly payment is the same, excuse me, at the rate it is. And then you could always have it go down. I don't know many rents that actually will go down in the future. They usually just go up. So
And the reality is that, if like, no matter what happens, if rates go down, your payment will go down. If they don't go down, then you're no better off waiting than you are doing it now. And if they go up, then you're better off now than later. So there's really no true incentive to waiting, aside from waiting until you personally can feel comfortable with the payment, which obviously is really important. But if you feel comfortable with the payment, then there's really not a lot of reasons not to move now, just because there's only pretty much a guarantee that you'll have the highest payment now, and it can only go down. Yeah, it's a good option. It's scary, I'll admit. No one likes seeing that 7%, but I also don't want to offer 100,000 over the house that I would have offered asking price today, just because I have a 1% higher rate. And if you really think about it, that 2%, obviously that's a lot of tangible money. Let's say you're paying 2% above the interest rate on a $500,000 house or $500,000 loan, for 3 years, and then you refinance to whatever, 2% over what you'd be comfortable with or what you're happy with. That's $10,000 or $30,000. In reality, do you think that holding a home for 3 years is going to appreciate more than $30,000 over those 3 years? And I mean, my personal assumption would be absolutely. And
well,
that's really what it comes down
statistically,
to.
if you look at the statistic averages over the last years, I mean, houses have gone up significantly in this area, especially because our inventory is low. We have so many people moving here because of jobs. So yes, you can make that. It is a prediction, but it's definitely a good one.
Yeah, let me actually try something real quick. Let me just do some real quick rough math. It shouldn't be too complicated. Divided by 5. Let's assume that $500,000 loan was like a 5% down, or I'm sorry, 10% down. So I'm doing like a 550. It's not exact, but you get the idea. So that's like a 5.5% total over that 3 years. And so if you think your home will not appreciate 6% in 3 years, well, that's fair, but I don't personally believe that. I think that really to assume 5% per year is a safe and modest bet in this like King County market. Because like I've said, like even with 7.5% interest rates, no one's seeing a decline in their true values. And more, it's a little stagnant. Things maybe aren't going up super fast right now, but look at all the numbers. You can probably attest to this.
Very much so.
They're still going up, and so if it can do it now, with rates lower, it'll do it again.
Yeah,
it'll continue doing it.
Well, thanks for having this conversation with me. And I was very surprised by how many people sparked interest in the rent versus buying. And I think buying is just a great way to build your equity. And that's, I say it's a wealth builder, generational wealth. It's for your retirement. You can see it however you want. But long term, it's a great long-term investment. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to break down those numbers too. For a specific scenario, let's say you think your rent is really great. Maybe you have a roommate. Send the scenario over to me, and I'm kind of a geek. I like doing that math, and I'd be happy to help you with it. We can work out Excel spreadsheets or whatever. I'm total nerd for doing like long-term calculations.
And I can attest to that because I send things to Drew all the time, and I'm like, hey, should I buy this house? And my husband's always like, no. And I'm like, Drew, you tell me if this is a good investment. So
almost every time I say yes.
Yeah. So
but it's true. I really do like doing the math, and I'm more than happy to help anyone that has a question. Even if you're like, let's say you're not ready, I'm also super comfortable with like people who say like, I don't want to buy this year. That's not what I want to do for reasons that are my own. But I want to know the benefits, and I want to know how I can plan and prepare for next year when I do think I want to buy, maybe after I'm married or after I've gotten that promotion I'm looking for. Those numbers are just as valuable. And so more than happy to provide things, and even if it's a year out from going on the market.
Yeah, it's always good to know. So, all right. Well, that's all we have today. Thank you so much, Drew, for everything. And yeah, please message him if you have any questions, because I do it all the time and I recommend it. So, all
Yeah.
right.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks a lot.
everyone.
Bye.